Hi everyone, welcome to Fiction in Real Life. I'm Jennifer Moore and I'm here with my friends Julie Daines, Heather B. Moore, and Jen Geigle Johnson. And this is our part two of our what are we calling it? Like urban legends, hometown legends kind of show. Um, and we're talking about all your fun stories you sent in about your hometown. So a couple weeks ago you saw the ones that we did, and one was about my town. Anyway, these are some new fun ones that people have sent to us. As usual, we have a giveaway for anybody that comments on our Facebook. We're gonna pick someone and send them this book, Summer Haven by Tiffany Odekirk. And so make sure you comment as much as you want. We love it. And then also you can write in your stories at fictionirlauthors@gmail.com. So let's go. We'll get into it. We're going to start with Heather. You have a story for us.
Okay, so we had a story actually submitted by one of our listeners / watchers, Catherine. And I thought it was really interesting because I had never heard this story. But apparently there's a small town in Indiana called Salem, which is interesting to me because I wrote a book about another Salem in Massachusetts. But Catherine grew up in Salem. And when she was basically a toddler, there were 13 bombs placed around Salem. And they were found stashed behind buildings and under bridges on July 5th, so the day after the 4th of July. And it wasn't until the following year that someone was convicted for the crime. But for whatever reason, none of the bombs went off, but 3 of them were ignited, but they fizzled out without exploding. So that's a pretty crazy story. But Catherine also said that one of the attorneys in the court case said that if the bombs had all gone off, that this city basically wouldn't be there anymore. It'd been off the map. I remember when I was researching for one of my books, The Paper Daughters of Chinatown, just one bundle of dynamite was left by the mission home one time in retaliation for some of the things that had gone on. And they said that if that had gone off, it would like blown up the entire block. So I definitely believe that these 6 bombs would have just taken out this town. So that's pretty crazy. I don't know if anyone would book that, but maybe it would be like a story starter.
So it reminds me, there's my mom and dad have a cabin up in Oakley in Utah. And on the 4th of July, every 4th of July morning, there are explosions all over the valley. And someone has dynamite and they put it, I thought it was like a cannon, or something, but it's dynamite. I guess people can do it. Well, I do not think I would book this terrorist threat to this small town. This kind of makes me feel uncomfortable, and I'm curious about it, but I don't want to write about it. What do you think, Julie?
I think I'm kind of in the same camp as you, because I think it's super fascinating and it's really terrifying. But I think that it would be a great story for like someone who writes crime drama and that kind of stuff. And I just don't know anything about that kind of thing. So it's a really interesting story, but I just don't think personally I could tackle that with my little skill set.
What do you think, Jen?
I'd have to switch genres again, but I think I might. I think it's intriguing, but I wouldn't treat it in a dark, scary way necessarily, but it might be suspenseful. It might be related to like clues or adventure or something, and nobody would get hurt by these bombs. But in that way, I might consider booking it. It's kind of intriguing to me. I'm already asking why. Why would a person do this? So.
And why didn't any of them go off? That's weird. Why didn't any of them work?
Were they homemade, or
maybe the ex-wife knew and she went and
I don't know.
What about you, Heather? Would you book it?
I don't know. I mean, I like it. Like I like it from like 2. Like the first standpoint I like it is maybe a suspense where someone's trying to prevent it from happening, and so they find out, that whoever it is, this uncle that escaped from prison or something, is targeting towns, and so it's kind of like trying to stop the crime. Or maybe as a historical, I guess it was 1988, so then maybe that is still historical. But it still would be interesting, like court case, I don't know, like how it would all play out. But I've read, I think everything John Grisham has written, but I think it's always interesting to read court cases and just find out how all these legalities. I don't know if anyone's read or seen Where the Crawdads Sing. It's now a film, but it reminds me a little bit of like that kind of a story where it's kind of a small town and there's a lot of different layers and the townspeople and how everybody treats each other and how they react and respond to each other. So maybe he did it as an act of revenge, or I don't know. So I really like it. It would be kind of tricky to write maybe, but it might be interesting to write.
Yep. And learn why someone wanted Salem, Indiana wiped off the map, because that's
Right.
interesting. Okay, Julie, you've got a story for us.
Yes. So this story was sent in by one of our viewers named Holly, and takes place at the Central Washington University. So there is an all-female residence hall there called Kamola Hall, and I don't really know exactly how to pronounce it, but I think it's Kamola Hall. And so in the 1940s, this is the story. Okay, so there's a ghost that haunts this building, and her name is Lola. And the story that I think is most generally accepted about her is that she was at the school in the 1940s, and her fiance was drafted into the war.
Oh.
And he then was killed in battle. And she was so distraught about it that she put on a wedding dress and went up into the attic and hanged herself.
Oh.
So now she has been wandering the Kamola Hall for all this long time, especially the upper floors, apparently. So, there's this. So Holly, who sent this in, her dad knows a photographer. And this photographer named Rich tried to do a recreation of the Lola story. And so he got a girl in a 1940s wedding dress, and they went up into the attic right before the sun went down and took a bunch of pictures to recreate this story, right? But when he went and got the film developed, because this was like back, I think, in 2002, he went and got the film developed, and of all the 3 roles he shot up there, none of them developed. They were all black. And so he was telling the people that it's not impossible for like a single roll of professional film to be bad, but the odds are pretty high that it's not going to happen. But he said to have all of those roles from different emulsions and manufacturer batches, to have all of them not exposed properly, the odds of that happening are astronomical. Wow. The pictures that they took outside are fine. So 2 of the rolls came out black. One of them came out just like muddy and couldn't get anything off of it. So according to him, he believes in the ghost of Lola.
All right. I would book it. I love that kind of stuff. I feel very sorry for Lola, though, so I don't love that part of the story, but I love the haunted place with the woman whose heart is broken and does not want recreations of her worst day of her life made, and so she sabotages the cameras. That's a cool story. Way to go, Lola. And sorry about what happened to you.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think, Jen? Would you book it?
I would want to reunite the poor lovers. So I'd book it in that way. Like I don't know what that would be, paranormal thing, a ghost story, but I would want to reunite the guy who died in Lola. And maybe she's stuck there until something happens. One of her ancestors helps her out. I don't know, or one of her posterity, or she wouldn't have any because she died. Anyway, someone is helping her in our time and she wants to, and then
She had a secret baby before she died.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
But because of the time, she was forced to have it sent or to adopt it out. Or
Yep.
something.
And then she killed herself out of despair.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We've already written this book.
Yeah, done. Okay, booked.
All right, Heather, what about you?
So I would, I really like the whole concept. I love it because it's based on a true story, even if the ghost part may or may not be real. But I would change it. Like I would do based on a true story, but I would change it where she didn't actually hang herself. That was a setup. Maybe she was trapped, or maybe she was sent away, or maybe something happened. And so a modern person, or it could stay historical. she could have escaped, or maybe she had I don't know. There'd be a lot to think about, but I would maybe change it a little bit so there's kind of a mystery, like what you see on the surface isn't what happened at all. Like I love those mysteries where everything is set up and then you realize all these things happen behind the scenes.
What if he didn't die? So she has to go find him.
There's like 2 John Smiths from Kamala Hall.
And he's like a prisoner of war. And if they find out anyway, yes.
Yeah.
This is good, Heather.
And he thinks he died, but then,
the guy went off to war and died, but a look-alike person, just like that movie Summersby, a look-alike person came back and took their place.
All right.
This should be a whole series.
Kamala Hall, book 1.
Would you book it, Julie?
I would definitely book it. I mean, I think
ghost.
everybody knows it's pretty much my dream to live in a haunted house. And I do have the haunted voodoo doll. So I'm like halfway living the best life. But I love it. I think it would be really cool to do a dual timeline for this one of Lola's story and a modern story that has some kind of connection back to Lola somehow. An aunt, or I don't know, maybe she is the abandoned child. I don't know. But I think a dual timeline could be a really fun, interesting story.
Okay, Jen, we have one more story.
This is the weirdest story I've ever heard. So Jamie told Julie, who told us, and this is seriously the weirdest story. So have you ever heard the cliche phrase, whatever it's called, the idiom, running around like a chicken with his head cut off? So we've heard that, and we know that sometimes when you chop off a chicken's head, the neurons fire for about 15 minutes, and the chicken, the poor thing, can run around without its head. And then it dies, and it's all good. Well, there was a chicken. I mean, then you eat it for dinner, right? So there was a chicken that in Colorado that they cut off its head, and it lived, and it lived, and it lived, and it lived. For 18 months, they had a chicken with no head. And it was a long time ago, and they were like low on money. So they decided to sign this chicken up for there's like traveling fairs, or what do they call them? Yeah, there's a picture of our chicken. And this was him. That's the real guy. And they signed him up so they would tour and people would pay to see the chicken that was still alive without a head. And it was a great moneymaker for them, and actually in some ways a blessing for their family. So but here's the story. You're wondering how, what? This is impossible. So apparently the chicken's brain is really not in that front part of their head. So they cut off, you see the eyes and the beak and the brain. It looks like his head, but really the brain is kind of more in the brain stem and the back part of that head that's there. So the actual brain part that functions to keep the body alive was still alive and well. And this is where I hope we don't get any calls from PETA. We did not do this. We're not like even supporting animal cruelty, but this family would feed this poor chicken liquid and food diet down its esophagus to keep it alive all this time so that they could keep this money-making sideshow so that they could support themselves and live and have food. But the problem is they would still be doing it for as long as the bird's natural life. But they, in one area of town, one thing they also had to do is like syringe out mucus and things so the bird didn't suffocate. And they had left the syringe in one city. And when they came to the new city, they kind of heard the bird choking and realized that they had allowed this poor thing to suffocate. I mean, is that a blessing? Maybe the poor thing. So the story is, in this town, it's famous. This is truly a real story. And the story is that the bird lived for 18 months and then its owner accidentally let it die. And he did make a little money off of it. They bought a hay baler, 2 tractors, replaced his horse and a mule, and a 1946 Chevy pickup truck.
Well,
that's a lot.
All right. I'm going to say I would not book it because it just kind of grosses me out and I feel very sad for it. But I just want to know everything about it. If I heard that chicken was there, I would absolutely go to see it. Like if it went outside in the sprinklers, I bet it would drown. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be, there's dangers of having a headless chicken on the payroll, And then also, are chickens all girls? Because its name is Mike.
True.
Do I not know? I thought the roosters are the boy chickens. I don't. Anyway, I don't know. Is Mike a a female.
I think it's the male chicken.
Yeah, I think it's a rooster, and I'm not. Yeah, I should have just said that.
I just don't know. There's so much I want to know about this situation.
Yeah.
Julie, what do you think? Would you book it?
Well, I think I probably would book it. I'm not exactly sure how. It would take me some serious brainstorming on how to do that, but it would definitely be from a side point of view, right? Not the actual farmers that had cut the head and the chicken, but like maybe the neighboring farmers or something, because I don't know, it's weird. I do know Jamie told me that there's like a big statue in that town to Mike the Headless Chicken in
And
Fruita,
a holiday.
Colorado.
They celebrate like a
Yeah,
festival.
they celebrate him. He's a big deal. I mean, if you're a town of nothing and then all of a sudden you have this fancy headless chicken.
Yeah. Big time. All right, Heather, would you book it?
I don't know. I think it's like the only thoughts going through my head are really complicated stories. So I probably wouldn't book it because I feel like maybe it was a hoax. And I mean, maybe it was real, but maybe it was a hoax. And maybe, the neighbor is trying to disprove. And so that person gets knocked off, and so it's like this whole mafia type. So see, it just gets too complicated in my mind.
I could see the mafia getting involved in
Because
that.
that's a lot of
It's a headless chicken. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Would you book it, Jen?
I don't think so. And it's interesting because after people, oh no, I think about it. It was after people tried to replicate it. And I just feel like that's kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't, yeah, I don't love it. But everybody who has tried, for all our viewers out there, has failed. Apparently, Mike's owner, Troy was a great-great-grandson. But anyway, his owner cut it in just the right way, and the clot formed at exactly the right moment, so the bird did not die. So it's such an anomaly. Like, it's the rarest thing ever. But I can't find a way to make it work for a story, so I can't book it. But
Wow. Well, lucky for Mike, he got a little extra. Doesn't it seem like a Tim Burton character? Just kind of a little uncomfortable and kind of icky. But yeah, I mean,
but you can't look away either. It's
Yeah,
right. You gotta know.
fascinating at the same time.
Well, like we said at the beginning of the show, a commenter is going to win a copy of Tiffany Odekirk's book, Summer Haven. And don't forget to write in your stories to fictionirlauthors@gmail.com. We love the stories. They're so much fun. And thank you for joining us on
Fiction
In
Real
Life.
Yay.